to the Mini Transat Mission, an offshore sailing podcast. I'm your host, Peter Gibbonsnap. This is episode number 12. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode where we talk all things related to the Classe Mini 650 and the Mini Transat. I'm really excited to share our first in a series of interviews with other mini sailors. This was a fun conversation with my friend Mark O'Connor, who has his sights set on the 2025 Mini Transat. We'll cover a wide range of topics, but I think you'll find it interesting hearing about his experience in the Classe Mini. Mark is an Irish skipper who first owned a Pogo 2, then upgraded to the Maxi, which he's currently on track to qualify for the next Mini Transat. Really hope you all enjoyed this discussion as much as I did. Mark, welcome to the Mini Transat Mission podcast. How you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's great seeing you again. Where are you currently located?
I am calling in from Concarneau in France. So I've kind of moved here, almost a year ago now, for my own mini project. And it was kind of unforeseen. I came to France to do some mini racing. I said, I want to go back to Ireland after the season. And well, I'm still here, and that's 18 months later. So
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get into all of that. But something I was trying to think about is, do you remember where we first met? So we've known each other for a couple of years now, so it's nice being able to talk to you and having you on this podcast. But do you remember where we first met? I was trying to think back to that.
It was in Douarnenez, in France. I remember, exactly. It was a really windy day. It was honking. There was boats arriving before the Trophée Map in Douarnenez. And everyone's kind of coming in, bam, bam, bam. And I see a nice big American flag arriving in full speed. Like we're talking 15 knots cruising, full main, full jib. And there you go. That was the first time I saw what would become, PGN Ocean Racing?
Yeah, PGN Ocean Racing. That's hilarious because I actually completely forgot about that. Like I remembered it was up at Douarnenez, or at least that's what I thought. But I forgot about that sail in because I didn't have a motor on my boat. And I don't think anyone was doing tows at that point, or they weren't like ready to tow boats in or anything. And I was just like, screw this, I'm just going to sail in. I've been here before. I know the area. I'm just going to sail in here and just, how I do a lot of the other dock landings.
I have to say, I mean, I don't have a motor on my own boat, and it really makes you improve your seamanship, your maneuvers and all that when you don't have a choice. So you just got to go in under sail.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see everyone sitting on the dock being like, oh my gosh, what is this person doing? And it's like, hey guys, it's fine. Everything's all good. Don't worry about it.
Well,
but
if my memory serves me well, there wasn't too many people sitting as running in their direction because, a lot of boats already parked on the pontoon. They're going, oh.
Yeah, I know. Well, luckily it all ended up well. There was no damage. I mean, I came in just fine, I think. I docked next to a boat. I had plenty of fenders. It was all good.
Honestly, it was a perfect come alongside.
Perfect. All right. Well, yeah. No, thanks for reminding me on that. Yeah, so we've known each other for a few years, so this is awesome, being able to talk through some things. Before we get into some of the background stuff that I want to hear, real quick, I think real broadly, I want to start with why the Mini Transat. What has attracted you to the Mini Transat? Whether it's the race, the boat, just why? What's the why behind what you're doing?
So basically, I finished college 3 years ago almost now, and I kind of decided I didn't want to just go straight into a job, straight into like the corporate world or anything like that. And I was looking for something, and kind of over COVID, I came across a guy who lives in Galway, the west of Ireland, called Yannick Lemonnier, who know well.
Yannick.
And I had seen his Mini before, and it kind of just, he was preparing for the Mini Transat at that time, and I was kind of thinking, that's interesting, and I kind of looked into a bit more and started following it, like everyone, watched all the videos on YouTube and had a look through what people were doing. I said, that's really cool, and I really like the spirit of adventure. It was kind of one of those things that I feel the barrier to entry isn't too high. You can almost, maybe not knowing how to sail, but with not very much experience under your belt, it's something that's accessible. And it leads on to bigger things as well if you wanted to. Like if you look at all the IMOCA, multi-50, class 40s, I'd say 95% of those skippers, they all started in Mini. So it really appealed to me because of that and because of the adventure. It's
Yeah.
it was just just what a challenge. And I've always been a fan of a challenge. So there you go. The Mini Transat ticked all the boxes.
That's perfect. I mean, I think that resonates with a lot of the mini sailors out there. Obviously, everyone has their own story, and I'm excited to explore some of those stories on this podcast. But I think what you described in terms of the adventure and the opportunity for future sailing, I think that's a huge part of it for a lot of people in this fleet.
100%. And
Yeah.
I
So
think
let's dive
that's
into
why we.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Mhm. Well, no, it's just I think that's why there's such a good bond between the mini skippers because we're all sharing a common goal and we give a lot to our projects. Let's be honest, like it takes a lot of time and effort and money to do a mini project. So I think that there is quite a special bond between the fleet, between the boats, between skippers.
Definitely. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears on those boats too.
Yeah, well, that's without a doubt.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, hey, let's dive in. I'm curious, have you been sailing all your life, or when did you get into sailing? How'd that happen?
So I almost got into sailing by accident. Neither of my parents sail. So how it happened was my uncle, so my aunt's husband more so, comes from a big family of sailors. And my parents were kind of looking for something to keep me occupied, I guess, for a summer. And he said, "Oh, by the way, in the sailing club, they're looking for people. There's space. Do you reckon Mark would be interested to do it?" And I think I was maybe 12 around this time. And I said, "Yeah, we give it a go. We see what happens." And I loved it. I did a 2-week course, and then I actually went back and did a second 2-week course 2 weeks later. So I absolutely loved it. And then the year after I came back, and I think on my 3rd year, I started taking it a little bit more seriously. I started doing a little bit of racing. I remember my first race. It was an attempt at a race because I didn't even get around the race course before they started lifting up the marks, the boys.
Oh.
But I loved it, and I kept going back. And then when I was maybe 16, I found myself on a big boat. So big boat for me was 35 feet. And to be honest, that's still big compared to where we are now. So
that's a good sized boat. Yeah, that's way bigger.
Yeah. So I started up on the foredeck and just really loved it. And I always was trying to get more into offshore racing then. I wasn't really sure how to because, well, I didn't have the contacts necessarily. So I kind of just kept asking around, and eventually there was someone go, "Oh yeah, there's a race this weekend. Well, if you're free, I can ask." And it just happened like that. So I did that race. Absolutely loved it. And at the end of that summer, I did a 300-mile race from Dublin down to Dingle on the southwest of Ireland. And that was my first offshore race. That was so much fun.
That's
it was
cool.
2 days. And it was a boat, I'd sailed a couple of times with them during the summer, etc. And it was the skipper was a little unsure because I was definitely one of the younger guys on board. I think I turned 18 at this stage. So, it was kind of, you're an adult, you can look after yourself. But just remember, everyone else on the boat was probably 30 years my senior, if not 40. So it was an interesting experience, but I really loved it. And on that race, I ended up the rig fixing the cap shroud because the spreader bar had broke. So we put up the kite, and it was in the last 10 miles coming into Dingle Bay. So we got around Skellig Michael, which is kind of famous now with the Star Wars movies, but it was famous before. It was.
Oh wow.
So we come around Skellig Michael. We put up the kite. We were going nice downwind, and all of a sudden the thing exploded. And I thought, that's annoying, but maybe there's a hole in it. So we put up the A4, the medium, and we went, okay, well, why did it explode? And I swear to God, no more than 5 minutes have passed, and that one exploded too. And I went, so something's up here.
Oh, jeez.
So what actually happened was the spreader bar had broke, and the shroud had popped out. So there was a sharp edge that was catching on the kite, putting a hole in it, and they would just separate it like that. which is all very well and good. We were 2 kites down, it's not a problem. But if we jibed, the rig was coming down because there was no shrouds anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
So I kind of went, looked at the coast, went, we 5 miles in a straight line. Let's luff a little bit because there was some waves, let's not crash jibe this thing and lose our rig. And I put on my harness and up I went. So then, luckily, there was, with the kind of waves, the rig would bounce slightly. I was able to push the shroud out and back in. And I got some string and lashed it and then duct tape around the edge just to stop, it being sharp. And we put up, I think, the A5, the code 5, which was the last one in our arsenal. After that, we had nothing. Oh, maybe a code 0. But, and then we did the last, and I think we didn't even lose a place. So it was a good race. We finished 3rd overall. So that was great
awesome.
fun. So that was
what a way
baptism.
to get into offshore sailing.
I know, baptism of fire, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's awesome. And so you might have said this before, but so I guess where are you from originally, and where were you sailing? Like for those younger years.
So I learned to sail in Dublin. That's where I'm from, and there's a great port there called Dunleary. And yeah, it's where my uncle had a boat. He was a member of a club down there, and so I stuck there and stuck with that. And yeah, no regrets. I still go back there. I was home for Christmas. I went down, saw everyone in the sailing club, and hopefully I'll get back this summer, do a bit of sailing there. But, time's tight.
That's awesome. And then when you were in college, did you sail in college at all?
Yeah, so I did a bit of team racing while I was in college with the university, and I ended up being keelboat captain one year. And the year before that, I was boatman. So I was in charge of looking after doing the maintenance on the Fireflies is what we had, 6 of them.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, team racing was great fun. I mean, I was never really top. I won bronze fleet, I think, 1 year. That was,
Congratulations.
3rd division. But I captained the UCD forts is what I did in my final year. So that's the level I was at in terms of team racing. But no, it was great fun. We had such a laugh. We used to go to events. We'd always have themed evenings. So, we dress up and drink far too much and then go sailing the next morning, That's
awesome. I mean, I think that's a big part of sailing, though, is, obviously we're out there for the racing for a lot of us, but the whole atmosphere and just having fun, whether it's on the water, off the water. I mean, that's a big part of, I think, why we come back to the sport year after year.
100%. Yeah. I mean, sailors on and off the water are quite different beasts, actually. On the water, everyone's a little competitive, and but back at the bar, it's all forgotten usually, and it's a bit of a laugh,
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about your transition into mini sailing. I know you said our mutual friend Yannick is awesome, by the way. He's the quantum sail maker. He's aloft in Ireland, over in Galway, and yeah, awesome guy. We did the mini fastnet together the other year on my boat, and he came and helped. We did a little training together, and he helped tune up the boat. And yeah, just an awesome guy.
And the year after, I did it with him as well. So we've both done a mini fastnet with Yannick. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, that guy has some great stories. I'm gonna have to get him on here too. Anyways, I love Yannick. That's awesome. Okay, so I know he was part of you getting into the minis. Can you kind of expand on that a little more? And like, did you go sail them at all before you bought your first boat, or how'd that whole process go?
So I pretty much jumped in head first. So I called Yannick and basically explained what I want to do. I said, look, I'm really interested in doing the Mini Transat. I want to give it a good shot. This is my budget, which wasn't a huge amount, to be honest. And he kind of said, I don't think I can sell you my boat for this, for that much. But look for an old kind of series boat. So maybe a Pogo 2 or something like that. Give a few options. Said Pogo 2 is not too bad because there's a lot of them. They're constructed well. I had already done a bit of research myself and decided a prototype wasn't for me. Certainly not at that stage. They take a lot of work to maintain, and you really have to have a base knowledge of composites, carbon fiber, resins.
Mhm.
I knew nothing, absolutely nothing of the sort. So yeah, a serious boat. Sorry, I assumed for the listeners, I assumed you've kind of explained that there's two categories and all that already in a previous episode. Or?
Yeah, if you're listening, you can go back to one of the episodes. I do have a whole series, episode where I break down the difference between the series and protos, definitely. And I think on that, like the series are a lot more forgiving too. When you are learning more about the offshore solo racing, it's a great platform to get into it. Absolutely. So I totally get it on that sense.
100%, yeah. So that's where I was. I flew to Barcelona to have a look at Pogo 2 in La Baza down there. And I really got good vibes off the boat. It was well prepared. And the guy was selling it for the right reasons as well. Like he said, look, I bought this boat because I wanted to learn. I bought it from actually the guy next door. He was also training here, blah, blah, blah. And it was my first Mini. I really liked it. And now I'm actually going to buy a brand new boat. So that's why I'm selling it. I went, okay, that makes sense, etc. So I got really lucky with my boat because although I knew it was well prepared, it was only when I started sailing it and pushing it a bit more, I found more and more, okay, this is well done. But no, had I sailed Minis before? Not really.
Hey, I'm not one to judge. I did the same thing. I mean, my first time sailing a Mini was when I was doing the sail test on the boat that I bought here in Annapolis. Yeah. I sailed it once with the previous owner and then bought it, and it was mine. So I totally get the feeling of just jumping into it head first. And I think that's interesting
and I've come across a lot of people like that, though.
Yeah. And so with that, jumping into it and buying the boat really before even sailing these things, what was your initial thought process going into it with like you're setting up a campaign? What was your timeline? What was your goals? I think we had some pretty similar goals in terms of like learning the process of this whole racing. And I'm curious how it was for you.
Yeah. So originally I wanted to do the same Transat as you, actually, the 2023. But on paper, that was 100% doable. So I did my qualification loop. I did my 1,500 miles of racing. But it wasn't until I got to France that I kind of realized I was trying to push a little bit too much, and there was actually a lot of people who wanted to do it. I mean, you've been on the circuit there last year. It's chocolate, like there's no more room in the Atlantic.
Yeah. Well, and I know how it goes because I mean, when I first got my boat, I wanted to do the 2021 race Mini Transat, so I know exactly what it's like. Of hey, I'm buying this boat, I want to do the next Mini Transat. All the time's going to line up. Have the timing. There's enough qualification races, all that kind of stuff, and then things happen. So I totally get that. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious how that all evolved for you.
Yeah, so basically, I had entered in all my races. I had my exams. I finished in May. 2 days afterwards, I packed up my boat and I did a single-handed delivery from Dublin down to Douarnenez. So it was about 330 miles. And that was the first time I'd done a really long. It's funny because now I don't consider that long, but at the time
that's
I was
a serious sail, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
so thankfully the week before I had a week in between my last and second last exams, so I went for a weekend of training. So I did, I think, 3 days or 4 days. Maybe it was only 2 or 3 days where I went around the Scillies and back to Dublin. So I did about the same, and that was my first overnight on the boat. And that was at the end of May. And then, I packed up my things and I sailed to Douarnenez for the Trophy Map. And that was my first Mini race. I had no clue how I was going to do because, you're jumping into the unknown. I think especially for us Anglophones, as we're referred to, we don't speak French. Well, I picked up a bit now, but certainly at the time I didn't speak a word French. So you don't follow the stories as much. You're not able to follow the fleet as intensely, I guess. So I totally diving into the unknown. I had no clue what was happening. That was my first solo race. I actually fell and injured my head during that race, but
how'd that happen?
I went to put on the backstay and I thought there was a bit more slack actually than I thought. and just pulled it, and whoop, there we are. Fell backwards and hit my head off the edge of the cockpit, off the edge of the coach roof.
Oh, wow.
However, I did that. I went, okay, it's not too bad. Lifted up my hat and kind of rubbed the back of my head, and my hand was covered in blood. I went, oh, that's not a great great sign. So I went downstairs, and you've seen the list of the pharmacy we have to bring. It's 3 pages worth. Yeah. So I had all that prepared. So I had my plasters and cleaned out the cut and put on the spray. I drained the can of spray plaster. It was fine.
You could have done staples if you wanted to. You had everything.
I was no problems. And I had a bar of chocolate for energy, just to keep my sugar levels up. Yeah. And I came back up, and I'd overtaken 2 or 3 boats.
That's insane.
So, Marco, who I believe you also know quite well from Bingo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I finished ahead of him that race, and he goes, "How did you overtake me?" And I went, "Where did I overtake you?" He goes, "On that reaching leg between such and such and this mark." And I went, "Oh, that's when I fell, and I was doing first aid on my head."
Oh my God. Wow. That's crazy. And I got to say, a head injury is probably one of the scariest things that you can have when you're solo sailing out there. Because there's a lot of injuries you can do, or there's a lot of things that can happen that you can overcome. But one of the scariest things for me personally is having a head injury and either being knocked out or still being conscious, but not being able to move, head, neck injury, that type of thing. And so, yeah, that's always one of the scariest things out there when you're by yourself, because, you can break a bone, and that's going to really hurt, obviously, but you can still move around the boat. If you get knocked out, you're done. There's no one coming for you.
I think that's why, you have to take a lot of safety precautions. Always clip in. When you're solo, you clip in. Or if you're on deck alone,
twice in the bad weather.
That's you're totally correct. I think I knew I was okay at this stage because I really had fell. I didn't lose consciousness. I got back up and went, and it was just a small voice in the back of my head that maybe you should just check you're not bleeding. And then I realized I was. So, I knew I wasn't bad, thankfully, but it's could have been a scary one.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, okay. So you do your first solo race. Moving forward, you get some more experience on the boat. At what point did you realize, or did anything happen, or when did you realize that, okay, the 2023 race is not going to happen, I need to shift my goals to the 2025 race? How did that whole process go?
So, I was pretty happy with my season. I had done my qualification loop, so the 1,000-mile solo loop. I had done probably about 1,500, 1,600 miles of racing. So, on paper, I was good. But I think kind of midway through the summer, I kind of was like, okay, maybe I might be a bit tight. But if I finish everything, I have maybe...
And this is 2022 that you're talking about also, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's plenty of time out. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the series, the qualification closes at the end of 2022. So that for protos, obviously it continues into 2023, but for the series class, 2022, and that was it for the 2023 race, obviously.
And that's not a rule thing. That's just because there's so many series boats out there racing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, in theory, you could do more races, qualifying races in 2023, but there's just so many boats in the fleet that are racing that's just not possible at this point, right? Is that what you'd say?
So it yes and no, because I think it was a rule thing, but they were quite loose with the rules, because if there was place and someone qualified late, well, there's place, so they weren't gonna not let them go or something like that. So, but as soon as the places were full, they stopped all that because well, there was no need to. So, I was going through my season, and I was getting some, better. I was climbing up the ranks. I was climbing through the fleet. So it was the Duke and Carno, and actually, sorry, an interesting detail is I was living on my boat this whole time. So I spent 4 months living in my Mini. Well, 3, I'd say, with a few returns to Ireland. It was good fun, I was in France. It was warm. I was living on my boat, and I was just sailing place to place. So for each race, it meant I have to unload a lot of stuff, I had basically 2 big suitcases full of my clothes, and it was my life in France. So I'd unload everything I didn't need, get the excess weight off the boat, and then go sailing, go racing. So when the dual Concarneau came around, I was kind of thinking, yeah, okay, I'm gonna try push it a little bit, and we'll see what happens. So I did it with a friend of Marco, put me in touch with someone. Because before I had done actually all my double-handed races with people I knew from Ireland. And Marco put me in touch with a French guy. So I said, yeah, well, it'll be a bit of a challenge. It'd be good for me to force me to learn a bit of French. So yeah, we were going well. We put up after the start. It was a really cool start. It was a downwind start, reaching start. We put up the Jenniker. Off we went. We were flying along, like we were flying past some boats. And I was kind of going, we're a little bit on the limit here. Like we're starting to broach a little bit. We're a bit overpowered, but we're doing grand, so I won't. Okay, maybe, unsure. And at that moment, the backstage just explodes. Bam. And it was honestly really calm on the boat. The boat stopped heeling. Everything just was calm. There was no bangs. And the mast just falls forward. Gone.
Oh my gosh.
That was not a nice feeling.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. So the first thing I said,
I completely forgot that happened. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So
yeah, what happens when the mast breaks at that point? Like, what's going through your head? What are you doing? What's the immediate actions? Like, talk me through that.
So I wasn't driving at the time. So the co-skipper was he was on the helm. So I didn't really understand fully what happened. But first thing I turned to him and asked him if he was okay. He wasn't hurt, anything like that, because that was my main concern. He got hit by something or whiplash or I don't know, but just there might have been a medical first. So he was fine. He said, "Yeah, no, I'm good." So then I took a minute to process, and I went, "Okay, well, it's happened. There's not much I can do. There's rocks over there, so we're going onto a lee shore with rocks." So I kind of went, "Okay." VHF, let's call the race committee. Obviously, you've no antenna because your antenna is at the top of the mast, so emergency antenna goes in, blah, blah, blah. They had given us little yellow brick trackers, so I set off the emergency beacon on that one as well, just for good measure. And then I got out the drogue because I went, yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take to get sorted here, but I don't want to end up with those rocks. So the drogue went out. And as some competitors, because I was doing quite well at the time, actually, if I'm honest, I think I was probably first or second pointy boat, the second generation. So it meant that's awesome. all the fleet had to sail by me. So thankfully, I kind of signaled to one of my competitors if they could call the race committee on the radio. They did, and the Gendarmerie Maritime, so the French water police, happened to be in the area, so they stopped by and gave me a tow back to Concarneau. And then it was a really weird experience because, well, that was my house as well. So I was kind of still on my boat for the next 2 or 3 days. And I was going, damn, this is, well, it's definitely my 2023 season over. And so I started calling around to see could I find another mast, maybe secondhand, because I didn't have a huge budget and I didn't really want to have to buy a new mast straight away. And Jamila, big shout out to Jamila, actually, she's such a lovely person. She did the same Transat as you in a Maxi.
She's awesome. Sailed against her a lot.
So but she had done the previous Mini Transat in a POGO too as well. And she had changed her mast just before leaving. So she said, my old mast is in La Baza in Barcelona. If you want, the Mini Barcelona starts next week. I'm sure there's someone who could take it back up, when they're coming back from Spain. I went, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I went, it starts when? She goes, next Friday. I went, all right, okay. Interesting. It's Friday today. Or maybe I could go down and collect it. And I went, this little thought kind of was in the back of my head. I went, yeah, but sure, I don't have a van, I don't have a trailer. uh, I don't have anything. And I believe you've also come across Hiat, who's another mini sailor from the Netherlands. He had stopped in Les Sables and his friend was still in Concarneau. And I was talking with his friend who used to work in logistics, and he said, "Yeah, well, I suppose you could do this." And he acts as a trailer, doesn't he? And I went, "Yeah, you're right, yeah." So anyway, on Saturday morning, I rented a van, had my trailer sorted. I booked in Port Laffoy to get a lift out of the water. So I got lifted out on Monday evening. And because the trailer wasn't quite, adapted to the boat, it's a different model of boat. So I got some insulation boards and kind of foam and just squeezed it all together and strapped it down well. And there we had it. So I had my boat, I had a van, and off to Barcelona I went. And I'd called Barcelona. There was a great friend, Fide Norman, who also did this Transat in a Vector. He said, "Yeah, come on down, come. I'll talk to the race organisers. They're not full. You can definitely have a place."
Oh my god! So you're going to go down there and race now with a brand new mast?
So this is Monday. I'd lifted out Monday evening and I started driving. I drove till maybe 11, 12, took a few hours nap, drove the next day, and I got to the French border, took a bit of a nap, and then drove into Barcelona. I think I arrived there about 3 o'clock in the morning. This was on Wednesday now. It's 3 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, arriving into Barcelona. And I took a wrong turn as well. So I ended up driving through the main square of Barcelona.
No way.
Yeah. So there was everyone coming out of the bars, the nightclubs, and me driving in a rental van with the Mini 650 behind me, which you're actually not technically meant to be towing in Spain because they're too wide.
Yeah.
So and because I took the wrong turn, I was going down this tiny Spanish street I had trees on one side and balconies and parked cars on the other. I was going, oh, no. But so I squeezed through. It took me probably 25 minutes to get down, 300 yards worth of street. So eventually I got there and I got sorted. And some guys had already kind of heard what I was doing and got the mast out. They had put everything I needed. I had ordered some parts ahead of time. So I'd ordered new cables for the mast and I had rigged it up. And between, a mix of one thing and the other, I kind of hodgepodge together a mast and some rigging. And exactly 7 days afterwards, exactly 7 days after I dismasted, I started on the Mini Barcelona.
That is wild.
Yeah, that unfortunately it wasn't enough. It was always a long shot, but I guess in that moment I was so committed. I was going, no, I'm not giving up. I'm not quitting.
Yeah,
and that was me not quitting. So
and how did the race go?
Not very well. I was so exhausted from
just everything
from just getting down there. Yeah. So as soon as I crossed the start line, I just hit the autopilot and went to sleep for about 4 hours. And had pre-warned all the other racers that that's what I would be doing. I said, "Yeah, look, this is what I'm gonna do," and they went, "Yeah, fair enough. We'll watch out for you." So I got down, but unfortunately, what happened was because the mast was a bit old, one of the backstays. On the new mast, there's a reinforcement plate behind the backstay where it goes in, and on the older type of mast there wasn't. So actually, when I put on the backstay, it bent and it deformed the mast slightly. So when I took off the tension, it popped out. So I was down one backstay. So I went up the rig to try and put it back in. So I climbed up the rig. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it back in. I tried for maybe 5 minutes, getting bashed about by the swell. Because, as you know well, it's a little bit of swell on deck is fine, but when you're maybe 10 meters up, not so fun.
By yourself climbing up there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 10 meters, you're 30 feet up in the air, and one little, a 3-foot wave, but 30 feet up is pretty big. So I was getting bashed about, slapped into the mast, and I just couldn't get this thing back in. So I kind of made a really tough decision. It was the first time I'd retired from a race, but I went, I'm not dismasting twice in 2 weeks. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to turn around and go back to Barcelona. So yeah, it was really disappointing after, you know, all the effort and not giving up to get there in the first place. But
that sounds like the safe thing to do at the time, though.
It was. It's certain, and I definitely had been rattled a bit by my first dismasting. It's not a pleasant experience. Yeah, so I was definitely erring on the side of caution. And yeah, look, I think trying to continue on that race with one backstay, maybe it could have worked. But at the same time, if you dismast twice in 2 weeks, you start getting a reputation. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, that was a safe, responsible thing to do to drop out of that race. And there's always going to be more races in the future. And I mean, I think that's a big part of these campaigns too is, I mean, the goal is the Mini Transat, not some of these smaller races. You have to do them to qualify, but it's not worth breaking your boat over some of these smaller races. It's just not worth 100%.
It. But look, yourself, even during the Mini Transat, there's tough calls to be made. I mean, your pit stop, I can't imagine that was an easy decision to make, no?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. I mean, I was kind of forced into it when the rudder was ripped off. But, I mean, I could have just as easily said, hey, I'm done. I could have sailed into Cape Verde, just walked off the boat and flown home. That can happen. There's people out there that, don't want to keep on pushing don't want to keep on pushing and go. And I wasn't going to do that. So I was in and out. But it's different for everyone. And obviously every situation is different safety-wise. So
that's it, 100%, yeah. And it's too easy to judge when you're not in that position, You can say, definitely. I would have done this, or it would have been best if I had done that. But actually, until you're there, you don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's fascinating to hear. And that was on the Pogo 2. Since then, you currently have a newer boat now, right?
Yeah, so I upgraded to a Maxi. The second one out of the factory, actually. It's called Mini Skippy. And a Maxi is...
Great name.
Well... There's, I think, 18 years in the design, in the difference between the designs of a Maxi and a Pogo 2. And when you look at the Maxi, they've got that really round scow bow. Yeah. And it doesn't even look like the same type of boat as the Pogo 2, really. It's completely different.
Yeah, so I think the hull shape is definitely the first noticeable thing. But I'm sure there's a ton of other smaller changes. What are some of the other small differences that you noticed with the new boat that you have?
The response with the helm is quite different because the Pogo 2, you had two helms, one on each side of the cockpit, and they were connected directly to the rudders. Whereas here you have one central with two bars connecting onto the rudders. So just the way it feels, it's quite different. And I guess the way you trim and the boat accelerates a lot faster. So the way you trim to that is different. And just the feeling of the boat, I guess.
Yeah. And from what I've seen, I mean, all sailing conditions, it's different in terms of whether it's heavy air, you can probably have more sail area up. You probably have a bigger code 0. If it's light air, like the light air upwind code 0 sailing, the Maxis do awesome in also. So I've seen there's a lot of differences across the range of wind speeds, I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, that's it. I think the Maxis, they struggle. They go upwind and light airs, but it's a lot of work. However, once you are off the breeze a little bit, kind of AWA of maybe 60, 70, the boat just has a life of its own. It just accelerates. And you can really, you can hold a lot more sail area for sure. Because there's so much volume in the front, it doesn't push the bow down. So you can carry kites, you can, keep your mainsail 0 reef up to 18 knots, 20, 22 knots even, So that's a big difference, yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm curious on that, on the boat. I want to talk a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of different things of the boat that we could talk about, but one area I want to kind of focus on is the electronics and the electricity behind the boat and that kind of power aspect in the boat, just because we'll get into your professional side, what you do for your day job later on. But I'm kind of curious, what's the charging setup? What kind of batteries do you have? Let's kind of talk through that of your boat. Let's geek out a little bit,
Okay. So, full disclaimer for the listeners, my background is I did electronic engineering in college. So, yeah, my battery setup is maybe a little specific. But what I wanted to do was I bought cells, lithium phosphate cells, and I bought 8 of them and wired them up in series to make, 2 sets of 13-volt batteries. 12 volts effectively,
Yeah.
lithium phosphate batteries. So it's not your typical setup, to be honest, but what it does mean is, when you buy the BMS to protect the batteries, I bought the relays and you wire it all up together. It gives you a lot more control, but actually for changing out, if something ever breaks, it's not the battery I'll throw out the one cell, or
Yeah.
it's the advantage with a modular kit, but it's a bit more complex for sure. It took me probably a week to to organize it and charge all each cell's balance, wire it up, test it, and stuff
Do
like
they
that.
look like the normal batteries that you'd buy off the shelf, like from a store, or do they look different, or how is it set up like that?
It looks basically like there's 4 batteries. Yeah. So, and you can see
Oh,
a little
wow.
circuit board on top of each. Yeah. So it's what's inside your other batteries, basically. Each battery is composed of little cells that are wired in series and parallel to get your correct voltage. But no, you can certainly see if you take the cover off the battery box, you can see straight away they're not a standard package. But
Okay.
everything is waterproofed, and it's functionally it's the exact same as any other battery. It just means that if something breaks, you can change it out cheaper and easier.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So I think on my boat, I have 2 100 amp hour batteries for a total of 200 amp hours.
Yeah.
How many amp hours do you have for your batteries combined?
I went for 220.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then do you think that's enough power so far, or how has that been in terms of power consumption?
so far, I haven't had any problems. But that being said, uh, I I had a lot of power problems this summer before I
Okay.
got my batteries. So we can come back to that one later. But no, so far so good. The batteries are at 100% capacity. As batteries age, they lose some capacity, and they start, you get some blackouts if you're not careful, but that's the extreme end. But no, over time they degrade. So for the moment they're 100%. And I'm just charging with, honestly, when I'm doing my training, I charge them each night, and during the day I have no
Yeah.
problems. I don't use solar panels. For racing, I have 2 solar panels that provide, I think, is it 200 watts? I think, I can't remember off the top of my head,
Okay.
of power. That's done me great. I have a third one that I'll wire up this winter, and we'll really see during the Caliph loop if it
Yeah.
holds or not. Yeah, that's the real test of a boat.
Wait, you have to
Uh,
do the qualification loop again?
yeah, so because I changed boats, all my miles went back to 0. My Caliph got erased, so it's as if I was starting again.
I thought you didn't have to do that. Or I guess if you do the Mini Transat and then you switch boats, you
Yeah,
don't have to do it. I guess
that's
that's
it.
okay. Because I was
Yeah,
talking to someone else and they're like, yeah, I don't have to do the qualification again because I already did like the Mini Transat. Okay. I didn't realize. Oh, I didn't realize you're going to have to do the qualification again.
yeah.
Okay. Well, it should
So
be a
it's a
little
little bit
easier
of
this
work.
time around.
Yeah, I think so. I know what it is. Mentally, I didn't find it challenging the last time, but I'm excited to just spend a bit of time at sea this time around and get to know my boat a bit better, and see ergonomically how it works. Because
Yeah. Are you going to? So are you going to try to like track how your power? I'm really curious on the power consumption because
yeah,
I would say one of my gaps in knowledge is I've been learning a lot on the electrical side, but actual like tracking how much power you use. I feel like for me, it changes so much depending on the wind conditions. And I think a lot of
it
it is
does.
obviously from the autopilot of how much you're using the autopilot, how much you're hand steering, how high is the gain.
Uh,
I'm curious what your experience with someone who has a little bit more knowledge on that. How are you going to track it? Have you been tracking it? How does that whole thing look for you?
yeah, no, I mean the autopilot is the biggest consumption on the boat for sure. depending if it's wavy, if there's loads of wind, the consumption varies so much. So how I track it is rather simple. It's a battery monitor, the little screen, a Victron that you put on the edge of a box. You plug it in between the batteries and you measure the current. So at 12 volts, you should be able to work out all the consumption of the boat. But honestly, if you just do it by feeling, if you sail with your boat, you'll figure out all the problems. You'll know if you have blackouts.
That's kind of how it's been for me, is the feeling. Like I know how my boat's doing based off it. I just wish I was better with the number side. That when I eventually do sell the boat one day to someone, I wish I had better numbers to tell them, hey, this is exactly how it's doing. But I get what you're saying on the feeling. I mean, I can spend 20 days on the boat and know how the power is doing throughout the time. But okay, yeah. I get what you're saying.
But otherwise, I track the amp hours that have gone out of the battery already. So, the batteries are, in your case, 200 or 220 amp hours. So that's 1 amp for 220 hours. So if I'm drawing 10 amps with everything on, nav, lights, radio, autopilot, etc., well, 10 amps again would probably be a fair bit. I don't think I'm drawing as much as that. It's more 6, something like that. But then you can track, 6 into 200 goes what? 33. So you have 33 hours of autonomy on that time. And if you track, over the last 2 hours, I've used 20 amp hours of batteries. Well, I had 200 at the start of the day because when I left the dock, they were full. You can do subtractions and kind of keep mental notes like that. Otherwise, a data logger is the best. But the Classe Mini rules in series prevent that. So you got to make do with what you have.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And I think that's one of those questions I'm going to ask a lot of people on here too. I'm really curious how everyone handles the power consumption or how it is for different boats, depending on how you're set up. So, no, that's interesting. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. I'm curious. I want to talk a little more about the solo sailing itself. And, obviously in the minis, we do a lot of solo sailing in the Mini Transat, but then we also do some double-handed sailing. I'm curious for you, like, how do you like the solo sailing side of things and what drew you to the solo sailing?
I really enjoyed the solo side of things, actually. Yeah, I find it's a completely different challenge. You can't push the boat as much. That's the thing I like in double-handed. When you get a good partner, you can really push the boat. But in solo, you push yourself so much. You have to know where to draw the line, and it's you really experience a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I mean, solo sailing is such a roller coaster. The highs are high and the lows are low. So
they can be very low.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. I think just keeping your head level is the biggest thing, because there's going to be challenges. Like if you're not having at least one problem per day, well, then you're just not noticing what the problem is.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So I think preparing has to be the biggest thing there. Like, you have to get your spares in order. You have to know what to bring. You have to know how to use them. But then it's really rewarding, isn't it? It's you've prepared and off you set, and it's just such a you and the ocean. It's just so peaceful.
Yeah. Whether it's 200 miles or 2,000 miles, it's pretty similar feeling.
That's it. And the other thing I think, certainly for all the mini racing so far, is I've never actually felt alone. In terms of, I'm alone on the boat, but I've never felt lonely, because you have so many friends around you. There's 80 or 90 boats all doing the same thing, and you're pretty much friends with all of them. Just after even doing one race, like, it's, you're never really alone, and you might talk to them on the radio, or you see them and you cross them, and I really enjoy that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. The solo sailing side of things is just so different, and it's one of those things, like, you can explain it as much as you want and tell people all about it, but until you really experience being out there by yourself and doing everything yourself on a boat, it's hard to really fully understand what it's like until you do it yourself.
I find as well that you leave a lot of your problems on land. Like we go
Absolutely.
sailing without our phones. We're not really in communication with other people. So whatever problems you have when you're on land, it gives you a lot of time to think about it. But it also means you can leave them to one side and they'll be there when you get back for sure.
Definitely.
But it gives you a break, and it's really nice just to have a moment to yourself, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. All right. So let's talk a little bit more now about this upcoming year. What is this year looking like for you in terms of racing and training, and how are you going to try to balance all that with your Maxi and going for the next Mini Transat? What's that looking like for you for this year?
Well, so the big objective, obviously, of the year is the SAS, which is Les Sables d'Olonne to the Azores and back to Les Sables again. So that's 2,700 miles, I think, or so in or around
about
that.
There. I think 2,600, but yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's going to be the big objective. And before that, obviously, I have to finish my qualification loop to be able to compete in that. And that's a level A race. So that's the same ranking or the same rating as the Mini Transat. So it's still a big enough deal. It's not the Mini Transat, but it's a big
serious
deal.
race.
And so I'm really looking forward to that. Before that, well, I spent the afternoon sanding off the anti-fouling off the bottom of my boat. So
awesome.
I've finished a few little jobs, few little upgrades. So from the previous season, I've known what worked and what really needs to change and what I probably could change. So I'm working my way through what really needs to change, and then I'll move on to what could change. And it's just getting the boat back in the water. That's the first sort of goal. I'm here in Concarneau because I found a training group. I kind of did everything in my life a bit opposite. I found a boat. I came to France. Afterwards, I found a training group. Then I found a house, and then I found a job. So, most people, I think, do it the opposite way around, but that's how I did it.
Hey, whatever works for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm training here. First training is in February, which might be a little tight for me, to be honest, to get everything I want to do done beforehand, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, we're probably 15 or almost 20 in the group now. So it's a good group.
That's great.
Everyone's really motivated.
Yeah.
And we have a coach, Francois Jambou, who won the Mini Transat in 2017, I'm going to say.
No big deal.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a few little preseason races. Like, might try and get the Mini in May. I have a little bit of revenge to take there after last edition.
Yeah, real quick, what happened with you with that last year?
Oh, we might have to do a part 2 for this podcast to get through the Maxi season. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that another time. That's a whole other story. But I guess the short answer of it was I was on the dock around midnight when you came back in from that race, as did I think 80% of the fleet.
Yeah, I think there was 50 boats that retired from that one. If not more. It was a lot. Carnage.
That was a long night of boats coming in, getting broken and everything. But okay, we'll talk about that another time. All right, so going forward, I guess one thing I want to hit on real quick is one of the hard things is even if you are mentally set, you have the money, you have the time, you're mentally prepared for doing a campaign like this. One of the hardest things is actually signing up for the races, getting in the races, the waiting list. How is that process going this year? Because I'll be honest, I haven't read what's going on this year for any of the races just because I can't do it. So I'm curious, has it changed much from the last 2 years? I know last year it changed from the previous couple of years. So what is the process looking like for the registration now?
So they've stuck with the same process as last year. There's waiting lists, and you put in your preference of what race you want to do or not. And then the waiting lists are published. You say yes or no, and they work from there. So it's the same system as last year.
Yeah, but it's hard because you might need to get a ton of miles for, everyone needs to get as many miles as they're trying to get. But even if you want to race and you have the time, you can't. The races fill up, and the waiting lists are sometimes hard to get off of too. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
That's the problem, I guess, and I suppose you have to be a little bit strategic in what racing you want to do. Obviously, it depends when you're available, but if you put down all the big races, it's very unlikely you're going to get into everything. Now, sometimes lists move at the end, and you can get lucky. But for the Mini May, there was still people on the waiting list. I think for the Mini Fastnet, there was still people on the waiting list. So you got to be a little bit strategic in what you want to do. And afterwards, the SAS is outside that, so you have to qualify for the SAS in its own right. You have to do 800 miles of racing. You have to done at least one solo race and the qualification loop. So I have my racing done. I just need to do the qualification loop. So that should be different. But for the actual, circuit, it's still pretty congested.
Yeah, well, that was the interesting thing for the Mini Transat was the requirement was 1,500 miles of racing, but if you didn't have more than 3,400 miles, you were on the waiting list. So you had to have double the minimum requirement for the Mini Transat. I know this year, I think they're changing it where the SAS, you only get 50% of the miles now.
Yeah.
Right?
That was voted in at this AGM this year. So, the SAS completely blew that out of the water. I think there was 2 people maybe who didn't do the SAS that competed in the last Mini Transat, which is bananas. So the SAS was really obligatory to do the. It was completely mandatory to be able to do the Mini Transat. So, it's going to count for 50% of the miles. So it counts, but not at 100%, which I think is a fair way. It should give you a little bonus, I guess, because it's a big race. It takes a lot of effort, but I think for me, I'm not entirely sure that I have to do it in order to qualify, because I've a season under my belt with this boat. But I think just the fact that it is an offshore race, like, a proper ocean race, it's not a coastal race. It's such good preparation for the Mini Transat, because it's the first real race where you get to sail through meteorological systems.
Yeah.
You get to experience the whole weather systems that come through, whereas coastal races, you get a front and, you get more localized effects, etc. But you never go really 100 miles this way to be able to pick up, a high pressure system or pick up a depression or something like that. So it brings a lot more of that weather analysis and theory into it.
Yeah, and you could be out there for, 10, 12, 14 days, depending on how long each leg takes, back to back. So now you actually have to make sure you can't get away with having something that's good enough a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be careful with your rations, your water, your food. If it's going to take longer, you have to start rationing. Otherwise, you need to start maybe throwing out some water, and how you manage all that as well. Your bidon, the French word, I can't remember the English word, jerry can, I guess. Make sure they don't break, look after them, etc. So there's a fair bit of work.
No, absolutely. I think that's all great points. So I guess the last question I have for you for this upcoming year or 2 years for the Mini Transat coming up, I guess, what is it looking for? Do you have any sponsors? Are you looking for sponsors? How's that whole process, going to be going for you?
So I've just taken on a technical partner, thankfully. So I got a bit of gear and stuff like that. But I'm very much in the mode of looking for sponsorship and looking for partners who want to join the project. Because right now I definitely don't have enough money to get through the Mini Transat. So I'm looking to get some sponsors and to really allow me to up my game a bit as well, buy some new sails and that sort of stuff. So if anyone listening wants to contact me, hopefully my new website will be up and running. It's going to be www.ocean.racing. Simple as that.
Nice. Yeah, and after this, you can give me all the stuff I'll put in the show notes. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you, we'll have all your contact info on here as well too. So that'll definitely help. It'd be awesome to get some sponsors behind your project, and it'll be cool seeing you out there on the start for the 2025 Mini Transat. That'll be really exciting to see.
I'm so motivated. I'm going to be there. I guarantee you. There's nothing stopping me this time. So maybe those are famous last words, but I'm not going to wood. But
Yeah,
no,
that's awesome.
yeah, no, I'm giving it my all, and I'm really looking forward to just being there. To be honest, like it's you give so much to these projects. You know yourself, you're a skipper, but you're also boat captain. You're also, accountant. You're also sponsorship liaison. You're also communications. You're also, you're doing a
Social
lot.
media
And
expert.
yeah, that's it. Like thankfully, I have friends that have come to help me out in bits and pieces, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot of work, and it is, my project, so it's me who has to do a lot of the work.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you're a great example of I think what a lot of mini sailors are over in France, though, even though you're not French originally, but doing the mini campaign and then also having a day job also in the sailing industry. So can you kind of talk about what you do for work when you're not racing or mini?
Yeah, so as I said, I kind of found work last, I guess, but I found a job working with the IMOCA team, preparing for the Vendée Globe. So the skipper is Benjamin Frey, and he's preparing for the 2024, so this year, the Vendée Globe, so tour around the world solo. So if when you look at what we're doing is mad. This is next level of mad. And I am looking after the electronics on board. So the autopilot, all the wind sensors, communication, satellite phones, all that sort of genre of stuff.
That's exciting. So what has that been like jumping into the IMOCA world, working on a boat? I guess like what is that like? What's your daily? Is there like a normal daily routine? Like what does that look like for you on the boat?
It's been tough, to be fair. It's everything is pushing to the limits. Basically, it's a 60-foot boat, so it's already pretty big. But it's made out of carbon fiber. I know our boat is an older boat. We don't have foils like some of the newer teams, so we're not maybe as on the limit. But we're striving to be as good as we can be and do the best. So it's quite tough in terms of you always have to go to the extreme almost. So yeah, a lot of hours. It's a big learning curve. It was certainly a bit of a shock to reality in terms of when you think you know something, and yeah, sure, you understand the principles, but then implementing it and designing systems, etc. is it's been a lot of work, and certainly there was a lot of long hours on the first winter. So it was this time last year that I started, and it was just to get familiar with, to understand, and to up my level of French to be able to speak better with my colleagues and stuff was a challenge for sure. But no, I think I've settled in well. Looking back, a year is crazy, to be honest. Where I am now, I'm really happy. It's still a lot of work, before
Nice.
a start and stuff like this. It takes a lot of work, but there's also a good few perks. I was in Martinique for 2.5 weeks after the Translation Jacques Vabre and before the Retour La Base. So yeah, there's some nice little perks about that.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I'm sure there's some tough days out there where you're having like long hours, work on the boat, something's not working right electronically. But then do you ever just like pinch yourself, remind yourself, hey, like I'm working on a IMOCA right now. This is pretty awesome, even though I'm having a terrible day right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and even with that, I get to do a bit of sailing. So during like partner days out or during before the start, it's usually me on board with one other. So we're, putting up sails and that sort of thing. So it's cool. It's it is a bit of you do have to pinch yourself sometimes and remind yourself what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it is still a job and it is still work. So there's definitely days I'm going in going, really this again, or I'm just not feeling up to it today, or there's no point sugarcoating it. Those do exist a bit. So, but no, but overall, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I'm really excited for you. I mean, I'm excited to see both what you're doing for that boat, but then also for your own campaign for the Mini Transat coming up. I mean, I think you have a really exciting next couple of years ahead of you. So, best of luck for you for that. To that, yeah.
I 100% agree. I'm so excited to be where I am and to be looking forward to what I've coming up. So there you go.
Well, I've taken way too much of your time up. I appreciate you coming on here. Is there anything else I should have asked you or anything else that you want to cover before we close out of here?
No, I think we can leave it for the part 2, eh?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to have a part 2 sometime. I'll give you a little break so you get back to work, but we're definitely going to have to talk more on this again.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And we'll definitely talk to you soon. Thanks for coming on here.
Well, thank you for having me on. Take care.
Well, that's it for episode number 12. Thank you, Mark, for coming on the podcast. Make sure to sign up for my email updates at pgnoceanracing.com. And as always, if you want to support this campaign, I really appreciate it. You can donate on U.S. Patriot Sailing's website. That's uspatriotsailing.org. And those are tax-deductible donations, or also through my GoFundMe page. And you can find all that information on my website. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to this podcast, please hit the follow or subscribe button and make sure to leave a review. I really appreciate it. You can follow me also on social media at Facebook and Instagram, YouTube. That's at PGN Ocean Racing. And let me know what you want to hear about or if you have any questions. Feel free to email me, peter@pgnoceanracing.com. Thank you for listening to the Mini Transat Mission.